Welcome to another edition of the In Search SEO podcast, where we paint the town red with search marketing insights. Today we welcome a fine man. As my grandmother would say, a fine man. He's the search marketing industry's hottest and youngest reporter. He is George Nguyen, who sat down with us at SMX West to talk about what goes into covering the SEO news. Does Google frustrate the news reporting process? How to see past the crap and find SEO truth. And we'll discuss how to balance reader intrigue while not sacrificing your soul. Tips on staying SEO objective no matter what. But before we get to that, 15 days of insane rank fluctuations. We dissect one of the weirdest, one of the most bizarre algorithm update patterns we've ever seen. And of course, we tie it all back to that stupid virus. I am your host, Mordy Oberstein. I am joined by the healthy, the non-COVID-19 carrying, I think, who knows, Sapir Carabello.
Hello, Morty.
Hello, Sapir. So, are you a carrier?
Oh God, I hope not.
I hope not. Don't come within 3 feet of me, whatever it is. Can you get it across Zoom? I hope no one's ever asked that question. Just whatever idiot. You know someone's out there like, I wonder if I talk on Zoom and someone spits on the microphone, am I going to get COVID-19?
Well,
No.
I didn't leave my house in like 3 weeks, so.
It sucks.
Yeah,
My house is one enormous jungle gym at this point. I like the outdoor like patio furniture's like flipped over.
Oh.
There's an old office chair they took, and they used a wheel. It's like a pirate ship. It's pretty inventive, actually. And then the 4-year-old, very busy, but driving me crazy simultaneously. The new thing is, I'll watch at the corner of my eye, like something like blue, like streaking, like flying. I'm like, what is that? Oh, it's the kids jumping off like these chairs they stacked up, and the 2-year-old is following the 4-year-old doing this. I'll send you a video later. Remind me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like nuts.
Okay,
I'm like, oh my God. Anyway. Week 4 of dealing with what I call the stupid virus.
Yep.
Okay, so programming note before we go on. We will not have an episode next week. I'm taking a week off. We are back. We are back on April 21st. So, do not forget, we put out a new episode of the In Search SEO podcast each and every week, except for the 14th of April. And you can find it on the Rank Ranger blog. You can find it on Stitcher. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it wherever great, awesome podcasts are found. And of course, you may subscribe on iTunes. Also, how many SERP features do you own? How many of your top rankings are feature snippets? How many image boxes do you have? How many does the competition have? Get the total SERP feature aggregate analysis with our SERP feature insight reports. Head over to rankranger.com. Sign up for a 14-day free trial. No credit card necessary because we are not spammy. So again, programming note, we're not around next week on April 14th. We are back on April 21st. Get it? Got it? Good. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. Now that that's out of the way. Great show for you today. As always, love talking to George Nguyen back at SMX West. Funny how that is. You know, I have a large queue of interviews to get to, and I'm thinking back like, wow, back when I interviewed George, I was not in my house. I traveled halfway around the world. People were kind of talking about the coronavirus, maybe bumping elbows a little bit, but it was like, yeah, nothing's going to happen. And look where we are now. We're all stuck inside. We're all vitamin D deficient, basically, at this point.
Yeah.
That's a good biz to get into. Selling vitamin D. Which you need to take with calcium, I'm pretty sure, because otherwise it won't go into effect. Whatever. Anyway, we'll get to all of that in good time, because Google unleashed a series of out-of-this-world algorithm updates, which means we are going data. So, the SERP between, March 17th through April 2nd, April 1st, has been nuttier than a sauna in a Florida retirement complex. Think about what I just said. Ew, moving on. Out of those 16 days, whatever it is, 11 of them have shown elevated levels of rank fluctuations. Sapir, do you know when the last time that happened was?
Why
For real.
did I know that?
Why did I know that? You don't sit around counting the number of days between algorithm updates? Literally counting the number of days for 2 years?
Seriously. Oh my God. God, Morty.
Because it's awesome. Because because if you go to
Sure
rank
it
risk
is.
index, if you go to the rank risk index, and you just do hyphen history, you go back and see the last 2 years of algorithm updates, and you can
That's
count
nice.
up the days like a total idiot, seeing when the last time this happened was. Let me tell you when the last time this happened was over the last 2 years. Discounting core
Okay.
updates. Never, not
Yeah.
once. It has not happened in the last 2 years. Not one. Well, maybe back in April 2018, there was one really long, very moderate update, but it was one update and it was very, very moderate. So I'm not counting it.
So you're saying this is odd. We all get it.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, it's Corona related, right?
Valid point. That's one. Two, slower down. We don't know if it's Corona related or not yet. And three, I had a three in my head. There's no three. There's no three. There was something I was going to say, but there's no three. Okay. Right. Okay. So first things first up here. Let's tell the good folks who are at home. We know you're at home. What's been going on?
For our rank risk index, on March 17th, we recorded moderate levels of rank fluctuations. On March 19th, we reached high levels of fluctuations, followed by one more day of moderate increases. Then, 4 days later, we caught another update. From March 24 through the 28th, we caught a mix of elevated fluctuation, with the exception of March 26th. Then, one day after that, 2 days of very high rank fluctuations, followed by another day of moderate fluctuations.
Okay, so crazy, right? One update after the next update after the next update. And just when you thought they were done, another update. So obviously, Corona is a factor. How do you know? Well, let's start looking at the timing of this thing, which we're going to get into a little bit deeper in a second. Okay, the timing goes like this. March 11th, I believe is March 11th. It could be March 12th, could be March 10th, somewhere around there. Okay, the WHO, not the band, the WHO Sapir has no idea what I'm talking about, but the World Health Organization. I'm talking about the World Health Organization. WHO fans just got that reference. Got it? Okay. Announced that this stupid virus is a pandemic. Okay, just like 3 or 4 days later, all hell breaks loose on the SERP. So there it is.
Well, obviously it's not as simple as that.
No, obviously, and holy crap, if I tell you that a lizard just jumped up my window, I am not lying. I live in the desert, and there's literally a lizard on my window.
Oh, that's super random. Okay.
What just happened? I blame Corona. He's trying to get in. He's like, get me out of this Corona world into your house. Yeah, there are 4 children here who will kill you. So run away, lizard. Run away. They've done that before. Anyway. No, it's not as simple as that. It's not as simple as saying, yes, all these updates started at the same time or very close to when this pandemic was announced. That's like saying we all came from monkeys because we like bananas. Anyway. We all like bananas. It's true, though.
Right.
It's like the one fruit we can all agree on are bananas.
I actually hate bananas.
Really? So you don't come from monkeys then? We don't know where you come from.
I'm a divine being.
Yeah, or you come from another planet. Either way. Okay, so in the SEO community, we talk about that 15%. That 15% of queries that Google has never seen before. But now, if you think about it for a second, we're talking a much higher percentage of queries Google has just started to see. Okay, a whole set of queries on a topic Google has not dealt with ever. So, of course, there are going to be updates. People...
You have to qualify that still.
Oh, he fell off the window. Oh, no. He fell down like a whole flight. Okay. My commentary on the lizard is over because I think he's dead. How did he fall off? Like, they have suction cups things for this. It's Corona. He just died of Corona and fell off the window.
I don't think animals can get sick of Corona, right?
I don't think so. I think it comes from animals, but therefore they can't get sick. I don't know. I just made that up. I literally just made that up. No, Sapir is right. I do have to qualify this.
I'm always right. Yeah.
You can't just say that. Okay, there's a lot of new queries around Corona, so of course it has to be updates. So let me help you out with this. Okay, when I look at rank fluctuations, during a Google update, I'm on the hunt for SEO insights like a leopard, like the wolf, like Duran Duran.
Just get to the point.
What? News queries. I don't look at news queries. Do you know why I don't look at news queries up here? I'll give you a hint. Oh, gosh, I was going to give you a hint. The name is it's in the name. Yeah, it's too new. News. Very good. Wow. Brilliant.
Yeah.
You are learning the ways of the Force. Yes, they're too new. Okay, they're topics that either topics Google has never seen before, or they're topics that are constantly developing, or the meaning of them is changing, right? For if you search for like, I don't know, election news in the U.S. 2 months ago versus now, it means you're probably looking for two totally different things. Like right now you're looking for, are there still going to be the primaries? Are there still going to be elections? What do we do about voting now that everyone's under lockdown? Versus, 2-3 months ago, you think, okay, when's, the next debate? So news queries are constantly in a state of flux because they're constantly evolving. They're new, hence it's news, and so forth. So now imagine the whole internet is this.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Okay, it's not as bad, obviously. I'm exaggerating a little bit. It's not nearly as bad as your average news query, but I'm trying to say, fundamentally speaking, there's a conceptual symmetry between the two. Mm-hmm. So Google's trying to figure all of this out. What this topic of COVID-19 is, right? Let me just get into some of the patterns here that I've seen to sort of back this up. I'm just going to run through a couple of points then. Is that cool?
Liar. You're just going to ramble like you always do.
Stop calling me out. Stop calling me out.
We know you too well by now, Mordy.
That's unfortunate.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I'm sorry you know me. I really should pay you like reparations of some kind.
Just get to the point.
I'm getting. Okay, couple of things, okay? One. So I've looked at, over the course of the last, I don't know, like 4 or 5 days, hundreds of keywords. What I did was, this time I didn't go find the biggest loser and the biggest winner. What I did was, the loser climbed up the other wall. He's okay. What I did was, I went through like hundreds of keywords, looking what happened in the top 20. Who's in and out? What's happening at the top of the SERP? Not even the first 2 pages, really. Okay, so one thing that I saw was not every keyword, nor every vertical, nor every sub-vertical saw significant fluctuations throughout these 15 days of rank volatility. But, and I looked at about, 100 to 150 COVID-19 keywords, every single one of those did. Every single one. From COVID-19 symptoms to, coronavirus cats, to coronavirus athletics. Yes, all of these keywords, literally, those are 2 keywords I looked at.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All of them changed. Now, this is where it gets really cool. Point number 2. The first update, circa March 15th, for these corona keywords, did something really, really interesting. Normally, you see, sites in the top 20 during an update. So some sites will drop down 10 positions. Some sites will shoot up 5 positions. Number 1 and number 2 might switch. What you don't see very often is sites that were ranking well for the last, 3-4 months, even though there might be some fluctuations with them, just stop ranking altogether. This is what happened. And really, really interesting, there was no update around March 11th, March 12th, but a lot of the coronavirus keywords did the same thing. They just, the very day that the WHO announced that it's a pandemic, Google switched something. And a bunch of keywords that were ranking, pages that were ranking for certain keywords related to the coronavirus, just stopped ranking. And all of a sudden, new pages started ranking. Now, the other 2 updates, the one towards the end of March and the one the way end of March, not as many keywords saw news sites start ranking, but what you saw was a refinement. Google started switching sites around that it started to rank, those 2 weeks prior. Say, okay, now we started ranking this site. Let's move it up a little bit, move it down a little bit. Let's kill this one. Let's kill that one, and so forth. But it's really, really interesting to see these sites are just gone, just totally gone. And you'll say, because of Corona, right?
Right.
Exactly, because of stupid Corona. Because all of a sudden, Corona comes to the picture. Let me play this out, okay? It becomes a hot new news cycle. It becomes the topic we search for all day long. And Google's like, holy crap, we don't get this. We thought Corona was a passing news story. We were treating it all wrong. Now it's a pandemic. Sundar, hit the update button. I'm losing my mind. Okay, so let me give you an example of what I'm talking about, because in case I am rambling on like Sapir thinks I am.
Yeah.
The keyword is Corona, which up until this stupid virus was a stupid beer, a very, very bad beer. You might as well just pee into a cup and drink it than buy a Corona, because it's sterile and I like the taste. It's disgusting.
Okay.
No offense to people who are drinking Corona, which I'm sure no one. Did you see that, by the way, in America? Like Corona sales, the beer sales have gone down. Like,
I was just about to mention it.
You do know that you're not going to get Corona from drinking a beer named Corona.
Oh, when I saw
That's
that
like
article,
saying-
I started laughing.
It's unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
That's like saying everybody who lives in Corona, which is a neighborhood in Queens, like from the Simon and Garfunkel song, which you don't know what I'm talking about, the King of Corona, has Corona. That makes no sense.
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
so the keyword Corona, up until the stupid virus, okay, ranked the beer company the number one result, which makes sense because typing in Corona prior to COVID-19, I probably mean a beer. And all of a sudden, just boom, it just drops. It's gone. Way to the bottom of the SERP. Well, not way to the bottom. Actually went from number 1 to number 3, but because you have all those COVID-19 SERP features. Yeah, it's like, it's at the bottom of the page. Okay, and all of a sudden, by the way, from number 8 to number 1 on March 17th went who? No, who? Get it? Get it?
Got it.
Come on, that was so bad. That was so bad. It was so bad. I'm so sorry. The World Health Organization jumped from number 8 to number 1. And at the same time, coronausa.com, which has nothing to do with the virus, but that very, very bad beer, also dropped down. Okay? At the same time, right, worldometers.info, which offers stats on COVID-19, jumped up. So you can see, this is amazing to watch. And there's many, many keywords like this. You just watch Google understand intent totally differently. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Moving on.
So the next two updates after this mid-March one saw further refinement, not totally new sites, or not as many totally new sites. I'll give you like another like pattern, by the way, that where you see like all of a sudden new sites did rank later, and you see Google trying to understand this whole thing. For example, I don't know if you follow sports, you probably don't, but
No.
the NBA canceled its season, and the way it broke out was that there was a team which one of the members contracted COVID-19. And they said, okay, we're canceling this whole thing. Now, what happens to be that the team where the player had the virus were playing the Boston Celtics previously. So all the players on the Celtics from Boston went into isolation. So for a while, for the keyword like basketball coronavirus or coronavirus NBA, whatever it was, Google was showing a lot of Boston-related keywords. Websites, I'm sorry, news websites, until it realized that, all these stories relate to Boston and the Utah Jazz, but it's really part of a national storyline, and it's switched them back. Or here's another really good one that I saw. And this is very important, by the way, and I'll end on this one. And I know I am rambling, but it's okay because it's really important. I did a search for things to do in New York City or attractions to do in New York City, something like that. And there's many sites go up and down. They show us a little reversal pattern. Fine. But there was one particular site for this query where I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. This page lost all its rankings. What happened? What was different about it? What was different was it was a site about what to do this week in New York City. Which is totally irrelevant, right?
Right.
So Google killed it. But sites, by the way, that we're talking about, the top 50 things to do in New York or the top 75 attractions in New York City, those sites didn't change much.
Right.
Which just goes to show you, and I'll end on this, stop looking at your rankings for a minute and look at your traffic. Because in this case, you might still be ranking number 1, number 2, number 3, I can go on. But is anybody looking for things to do in New York City right now? Look at your traffic. Don't just look at your rankings.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, so why are so many keywords unrelated to Corona seeing changes?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? Because obviously all these keywords are not related just to Corona. And we'll end with this one.
Oh, good.
Okay. So yes, there were tons and tons of keywords. I saw tons and tons of reversals, went down and went up. Some actually saw real losses, some saw real gains. But a lot of sites saw these, like, majority, I would say, saw these, like, a little bit of a reversal pattern. And I would think of it like this. Okay, let's say I asked you, what's a truth that you hold dear? That it's like an unquestionable truth.
I don't know. The Earth is spherical.
The Earth is spherical. That's a good one. So yeah, the Earth is spherical. Okay, but let's say all of a sudden you found out like that's not true, which is you're now a flat earther. Okay, like wow, it's a damn lie. Wouldn't you start reevaluating like everything?
I guess.
So same thing here, right? Search your intents changing all over the place. New topic, new things with connections into everything, connections to attractions and travel and health and school and everything. Wouldn't you start checking out and rethinking all sorts of topics, all sorts of everything.
Mhm.
Because one of the, it's like foundationally, you sort of been shook to your core. Like, maybe I don't really understand a lot, which I think is what Google's doing. Like, wow, a lot is changing. Things are changing very quickly. Let's make sure we're on track with everything, so to speak. And I think what you're going to see, prediction, I think, is that you're going to see more and more updates as Google tries to figure this all out.
Wow. At least our podcast is not going to be boring.
No, it won't be boring. Plenty of stuff is going to happen because of this nonsensical, stupid virus. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Back in what seems a lifetime ago, I mean, God, how much has changed in a matter of weeks, months, whatever it's been. I was back at SMX West in February, and I sat down with the life of the party there, the one, the only George Nguyen of Search Engine Land. And here is our chat uncovering the search engine optimization industry news. Cut one. Welcome to another In Search SEO podcast interview session. Today, we have what should be a very, very familiar face for you. In fact, you may be reading his content each and every day. He's the associate editor of Third Doors Media, which you may know better as Search Engine Land. And we are live from one of his events, SMX West. He is George Nguyen. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Morty. It's great to be here. And man, do they know my face? I hope they don't, because that profile photo is so smug and it's so embarrassing.
You do not come off the way your picture looks.
Yeah.
Because you're like super nice. By the way, you are the life of this party here at SMX West.
Thank you. It's very
So the
nice of you
powers
to
that
say.
be, like, more George.
More George.
More George. That's like my kids said. They were curious. George, more George. More George.
I feel like Barry's going to hear this and then he's just going to like, he's just going to clench his jaw and be like, can't do more George.
That's an amazing visual. There's actually, you know what? Most Barry visuals are amazing visuals.
There's that deadpan look in his face. And you notice sometimes when you say his name, his eyes open up really wide. Almost with hope. And then he talks and then you're like, oh, that was a little bit more cynical than I thought it was going to be.
So I love when he posts things on Twitter sometimes that people don't realize is being cynical and a joke. Like, oh, I hate myself, I'm the worst. And people are like, no, Barry, you're wonderful.
I mean, when you have like 125,000 followers or whatever, that like more than the population of Iceland, you're going to get that. I mean, he's well beloved and he's fantastic and he's one of my favorite colleagues for sure. So all of this is in jest.
Oh, literally my favorite person in the SEO world because he's both fun and the highest moral standard on the planet.
So humble as well.
Yes.
Like talking to him about his accomplishments makes he's so awkward about it and so humble that you feel awkward. And you're like, oh, should I not have?
Yes, right. I should not have said that to him
about that award or whatever. But anyway, that's the kind of level that is present every single day at Search Engine Land. And you also have like Greg Sterling, all these Jenny Marvin, all these amazing writers, and I try to rise up to that standard. So let me know how I'm doing.
I think you're doing. I love you. I think you're doing great, and I really appreciate you. And a big thank you to George. So actually, we're going to talk about this because this entire interview is about you.
All right.
It's about you and your experience writing and covering the wonderfully uncomplicated, unnuanced, and unnegative. That's not a real word, by the way. Search engine industry. So okay, first off, how do you find stories? Like, how do you know what to cover? What's the trade secret?
So when you're first getting into it, if you're actually totally on the outside, like when I was starting out, I was first in content marketing. And then when I started covering, I just kind of aggregated feeds, looked towards publications that I thought were interesting or doing it well, or just main sources. Like Google tends to publish things on their keyword blog or their Webmaster Central blog or their Chrome developers blog. And so you kind of add those and you just look them up and refresh your feeds almost constantly to find that. But eventually you gain enough traction that PR representatives will start contacting you to see if you're interested in the story, which actually snowballs because for the most part, you write about one thing once and they will attach that to you forever. So if that's not your beat, that can be a double-edged sword because you end up getting a lot of spam. But then you develop your name in the industry and you can actually get comment from, Microsoft, Google. It's not out of reach. They're not always going to respond, but it's not so out of reach once you've established your name a little bit. And also coming to the conferences means that you get to be in contact with people from these companies. Chances are the people that are speaking here are not going to be the people you're in touch with in terms of getting a response about, hey, is this true? Are you actually testing this feature? But they can pass your name along, or they can tell you who to get in contact with. And that bridge definitely separates coverage from somebody who's just copying a press release, from somebody who's actually looking into this. Is it going to happen, or where are they at with this? That's the difference between the generic coverage and the coverage that I try to strive for, given that's not always realistic, but that is the ideal situation.
And not to necessarily plug SMX, but let's plug SMX a little bit. Coming to the conferences is a major win. We're not standoffish, right? You can come over, we can talk to us, get new insights, make new networking, whatever it is. So you should definitely do that. I have to ask you, let me ask you this. I don't know if you can answer this or not, but when Google comments, right? Google is your source. Who is that?
They are real people, but I don't know if the response actually comes from them, because they are the liaison between the press and whatever their given department is. So every time I talk to somebody about a feature, depending on if it's local or if it's like a main SERP feature, or if it's Google News, I will be in touch with somebody different, and I highly doubt that the actual answer originates from them. I think that they clean up the language, but ultimately it's always, you can cite a Google representative or a Google spokesperson, and that's just what you have to do. When somebody's kind enough to give you an answer, you can't just throw them under the bus and be like, oh, this person said this to me. No, you have to honor that they are speaking on behalf of the company, and that's that. So,
on that line, you're getting a very polished answer. You're getting something that you haven't gotten an answer back. Let's put it this way. You're like, I don't really know how much that really answered the question.
Oh yeah, tons of times where you're like, that's a non-answer.
And I'm like, so they're your source, right? And you need them. And it's not just you and Google, but it's really any journalist. You have to be careful not to burn them. At the same time, you have to be careful that you write what's accurate. How do you sort of balance that?
Well, if they give me an answer that's not usable or as not informative, there's rarely a case where an answer isn't usable, because even a non-answer tells you something about the position of the company. And so you can just say, when asked about this subject, a Google spokesperson stated whatever. And now you can just hear my phone going off because I said the name of the company.
Awesome.
I'm just gonna.
I love that.
Yeah.
Have you seen the South Park with Amazon Alexa?
No.
Oh yeah,
Tell me about it though.
I'm not a big South Park fan, but despite my personality, you might think I am not. They had an episode where they said Alexa on the show, and everyone's Alexas went off in their home as they're watching the episode. It was awesome. The first time that ever happened, kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what you have to do. I think it's very telling either way. There's rarely a situation where I'm not going to get something that I can use. The only time that really happens is when I don't get a response at all. And then you just kind of, depends on the size of the company, you're just like, that's just what's going to happen or what's not going to happen. I have never gotten a response from Apple.
Interesting.
Yeah, calling you out, Apple. Help me out here.
Wow. Okay, how often does that happen with Google?
Google's actually really good. I would say that Google is, if you're not a journalist, Google is surprisingly on the ball, because I feel like their reputation really matters to them, and they don't want to step on toes more than they have to. The things that they do in the name of the user, sometimes I'm like, I don't understand why you couldn't have done this in the name of the user, but in a different way. Like map spam, local spam is still a huge deal.
Yeah.
But local brands, small businesses, one way to get on top of that is to advertise. So Google's making out like a bandit anyway, right? So really, is it in the name of the user, all the things that you're doing? It's a huge company and there are difficulties. But yeah, that's just kind of how it is. So yeah.
So speaking of getting things right, you don't have to fess up to this. You can play it cool if you want. All right? But I won't judge you. But how often are you worried that you're going to get something wrong?
I am constantly worried.
Constantly worried.
I am. It haunts me.
What, up at night haunts you? Can't sleep?
Nothing haunts me up at night, because ultimately I don't have that relationship with my work.
That's good.
I love
That's
the
healthy. Community,
and that's my North Star is I want to serve the community in a way that is truthful and that people respect. But I don't let that be the be all end all. I can always, I recognize that I can always go back, add something to the end of an article to recognize the mistake I made, and I've done that before. Fast enough where very few people noticed it.
Right.
But it is a very primary concern for me.
Yeah, well, that's really hard. I mean, there's so many times that things are just changing rapidly and getting it right, and that's not on you. Like, that's just the way it goes.
I mean, when 9 times out of 10 the answer is, quote, it depends, then yeah, you're going to get it wrong a few times.
Right.
But you just have to do what you can to make sure that if you get it wrong, you make it right. So I believe I reached out to you, actually.
Yeah, we got it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't. We put it was the feature snippet deduplication.
That's right.
And originally, what was happening was that the second URL, if you call it, was being put onto page 2, the top result on page 2, and we put out a tweet based upon that, linking to the Search Engine Land article that you wrote, saying, "Hey, here's what's happening." Our data showed that was what was happening, and Google updated that and said, like, "No, here's the real story."
Yeah.
We didn't reread the article. You re-updated the article, and then, as the nice person that you are, reached out to us and said, "Hey, you might want to, alter that tweet, whatever it is, redo it again," and which of course we did, and we appreciated that. So that's what makes you A, so knowledgeable, and B, so awesome.
Yeah, you tend to change things when Danny Sullivan reaches out through your DMs and is like, "Hey, you were wrong here," and you're like, "Oh, nice to meet you
Burn.
too, Danny."
Burn.
No, he absolutely did the right thing, and I totally appreciate him for that, because I don't want to be going around spreading the wrong idea, especially if this deduplication thing, the top of page 2 thing, is not by design. And at first it seemed that way because it was like, what, 100%?
Yeah, it was 100%.
Yeah.
We looked at it, and it was 100% across the board.
And then that's how it ended up. But, we got it cleaned up before it got out of hand, and I made sure to reach out to everybody. So yeah, I really go into damage control mode, and it does ruin some evenings.
Yeah, it sucks. I've been there. It does suck.
When you get it wrong, you pay the price. And that's that.
No, and look, in the end of the day, we're sitting here saying like how awesome you are that you went the extra mile to make sure other people got it right. So it works out in your favor in the end. But that's sort of frustrating, and you don't have to comment on this because maybe you can't comment on this. But that's really annoying that, let's say, someone from Google DMs you and says, "Hey, you got this wrong." So it's nice that they were responsible enough on their end to make sure that you got it right. But wouldn't it be nice if they plan this out like a month in advance? Say, "Hey, this is what's going to happen. Here's a press release. Here's the information. Here's what's going to happen. There's going to be a rollout. You might see the URL show on page 2 for a while, but that's not what's going to happen ultimately in the end." As opposed to like sort of running around and sort of like patch things up as you go along. It's kind of annoying.
Yeah, I would say that they, for the amount of times something similar to this occurs, it's rather startling because so many people, so many businesses and users rely on Google as their primary source of literally everything in their life. People don't even remember URLs anymore, right? But it does happen. And, when you're such a big company, I try to be reasonable because, honestly, who's really looking on page 2? We are, because that's kind of like what we do. But maybe an engineer at Google is like, "All right, cool, we deduped it. That's that. It's not on page 1 anymore." And they didn't think to look. And that's just something that like everyone's noticing now. Like, wait, did we plan that? Let's go take a look at that. So things slip through the cracks. And I don't think anybody, I do believe they got to it before anyone was like building their campaigns around ranking top of page 2,
By the way, if you're doing that, you have serious problems. Like, you might need professional help if you're building a campaign to rank at the top of page 2.
Maybe someone was like banking on that second page visibility for something, but
I'm gonna get these 5 clicks. It's gonna change my whole site. Rank in the top of page 2.
I'm gonna take screen caps and show everyone I'm at the top of Google and just cut off the bottom of the page.
Show your clients, look, we're number 1 on page 2.
Please don't do that. Please don't.
Please.
That's the official.
Please don't even go to page 2.
Aim higher.
Right. Have some standard for yourself. Like at least like position 9 or 10.
Which is still a tall order for a lot of these brands.
Yeah, it is. And it does, but if you're below the fold,
that's
problematic.
It's problematic.
Study pending, by the way, on that.
But,
or forthcoming.
You got to get somewhere. You got to be at the bottom before you can get to the top. I don't know any pages that publish and simply get to the top unless you're like the New York Times or
Wikipedia.
something. Yeah.
Wikipedia. I love, by the way, there's a change to Wikipedia, and it throws off all of our search feature data. Right? Because it's like thousands upon thousands of pages. Like, oh, wait, what happened here? Oh, Wikipedia changed something. That's why there's a dip over here.
Right.
I love that.
I never really thought about that, but that would be totally true.
When they switched over to HTTPS.
Oh, that must.
So that was like crazy. It was crazy. I was like, "What's happened?" Oh, Wikipedia switched over now, and it all makes sense. It's like the whole world switched over. No, it's just Wikipedia, which is the whole world. So there you go. Let's talk from Google to search engine land itself. So if you read search engine land, which I recommend you do every day, because in my honest opinion, you will not find articles like 5 ways to build backlinks. You'll just find an article about how to actually do what you're supposed to be doing, as opposed to a little bit of a clickbait titles there.
Yeah, where they're trying to get you. There's an ulterior motive to a lot of content out there, and especially content published by agencies in the space. I mean, that's kind of what you have to do, though, because that's what they preach. Build the content, and their content is worthwhile, but it does have a heavy commerce slant to it. Yeah.
I personally recommend not doing that. We try very much not to do that. But we just released a tool, TF-IDF tool, right? That'll analyze the SERP for you from a TF-IDF analysis. And when we sat down and thought like we have to promote this, there was a big argument with myself pushing like TF-IDF is a little bit like yesteryear with NLP, right? So we sat down and said, you know what, like if we're going to promote this, then we have to think of real ways you can actually use this. And there's a post out there now where I go through like, here's how you should not use this tool, because that's not how you should do TF-IDF analysis. And here's some ways you might be able to get some signals about what's going on. You're not going to get anything direct from it because you can't do the TF-IDF analysis, but you can get put on the right page with it. So like a long term, I think like if you go with, I'm not going to try to put a commerce on, I'm going to be honest about it, or I'm going to try to really just like, I'm putting information out there for the sake of putting information out there. Long term, that really pays off for you. And short term, okay, like whatever, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think that so the way we do it at Search Engine Land is there's a pretty big church and state separation in terms of editorial content. And the sponsors of the show, we've had a few sponsors that want to push for some more content. And we do put out some sponsored content that's clearly labeled. And that really has only to do with Search Engine Land, the website, and not SMX, the conference. And I think that not constantly plugging SMX, I mean, we do pre-coverage to let people know what we're going to be talking about at a certain session, what a speaker's going to be talking about. But those articles, they stand on their own.
Yeah. Okay. The overview or the summary articles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are that is very much not slanted towards promotion at all.
That's just something that we're trying to look to get the most value out of our own conferences.
Yeah, of course.
But also think about our audience. We're marketers. You smell this a mile away if we were like, hey, come to our conference, right? That's just a bad look.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'm really proud of the way we handle that.
No, I definitely agree. One of the things I noticed about Search Engine Land over the years is maybe it was I'm terrible with dates. Like I don't know like when things happened. Maybe a year and a half ago, you guys switched your format around a little bit. And now you sort of have like, okay, here's the news, here it is, and here's like the implications.
Yeah, the why we care
section.
section.
Why we care section, there we go. What was behind that? Like why make the switch?
That switch kind of came up maybe 6 months before I came on board. And that, I believe, I'm told, is the brainchild of Henry Powderly, our VP of content. And I just think it works so well. It's actually one of the main reasons. I was reading Search Engine Land before that came about, and I thought the content was great, but I was doing a different job. I was just content marketing, so I wanted to learn more about SEO. But then when I actually interviewed for the job and I saw that the format had changed, I thought it was so much of a breath of fresh air, because there are a few publications out there that are our competitors, and they make it hard to know when a page ends, or they make it hard to kind of see, like skim through. You kind of have to read the whole thing and view all the ads and stuff, right? I like that it's like, hey, here's within the first paragraph, if you stopped reading, you know the news. But if you continue reading and you get to the why we care, which is maybe 2 paragraphs later, not only do you have the exact news, you actually have how it might impact what you're doing. And I think that's why people come to our website.
I like it, by the way. Like, I'll tell you how I use it. I have like 50,000 tabs open every single day. Like all the articles I want to read. And maybe I'll read like 4 or 5 because I just don't have time. I end up like, all right, I'll get to it tomorrow. I never do. One of the things I like about the format is like I can go look at here's the news, and I can decide if I want to read the why we care, because maybe I have my own opinions why we care, and I don't care why you care. I care why I care. No offense.
No, I respect. Everybody's coming from a different background. Everyone's got a different job.
Right. No, it's more of a finish. Like I already know why I care. I get it. Fine. Or I read the title. I see the the subheaders you have there, and I know the story already. Like maybe Barry Schwartzer covered it on SE Roundtable, but now I can skip that and just go to why I care and read that part instead.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes the story is as brief as a tweet, Google tends to do that with like their search console updates. They like to just tell people via Twitter, and that's what 280 characters. They might do like 3 tweets, and you already have seen it via Twitter before you get to our coverage, and then you see it, and you're like, all right, well, I guess I understand, but if I'm working in an agency, how might this affect my diverse range of clients? And the Why We Care section is great because you can see how that fits into a certain client.
Yeah, I really, it's very efficient for me, just personally speaking. Okay.
Also makes coverage way simpler to do.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about structure too much.
How do I structure it? As a fellow content writer, I'm like, yeah, that's amazing. Like, I wish we had that.
Yeah.
What's the hardest story you ever had to cover?
There are some stories that just kind of take on a life of their own and you don't see them coming. Like I think I wrote our angle on the Wall Street Journal's fake maps listings.
Oh, right. I remember that one also. Yeah.
And obviously when you're reading it, you're like, okay, I can see why this matters to marketers because small locations, they can't compete with this, right? But then when you talk to agencies, people doing this day to day, and they have all these interesting takes about how they're competing and how other even SEO agencies are, doing the black hat thing, stuffing keywords and whatnot.
Yeah, it's amazing, right?
That took a long time because I had to wrap my head around all the ways things are happening. Also, the subdomain leasing that I talked about last year, that was...
I love that, by the way.
Some of my colleagues said, hey, this is quite biased, George. Did you mean for it to come off that way? And I said, I want to present the facts, but I also want people to know that this tactic, unless Google or Bing eventually comes out and says, hey, we can deal with this,
right,
do it if you want, instead of saying, hey, do this at your own risk, that's the line. When the search engine is telling you, do this at your own risk, you're doing it at your own risk.
Yeah.
And I want our readers to know that if this is an alternative revenue that you're going to pursue, there are implications.
Yep. On this very podcast, I literally called it whoring your website.
And, that's some really strong words. I'm not going to use those words. But
pimping your website? Is that better?
I would say that you really have to evaluate your user base and judge whether you're providing them a service or not and how they would view this service in the grand scheme of what you're offering. Do CNN users really need coupons?
CNN. I mean, God's sake, it's freaking CNN.
Yeah.
You got to be kidding me.
So what about that makes sense to you as an entity or your users?
I want to know who at CNN approved that. Because I understand that the revenue team really like that. But you have to like the I don't know what you want to call it, the editorial team, the content. How were they okay with that?
Yeah,
let's say they didn't know about it.
They publish other commerce-related stuff that is independent of their editorial team as well. And so you just kind of, it's a bleak outlook of where revenue is in the news publishing space, where everyone's just shilling out for coupons.
It's like you show up at the cash register with like 400 coupons.
I spoke to somebody at one of the companies that runs many of these coupon websites, these third-party websites, and they were very forthcoming. They had their own defense for it, but I felt like...
No, the coupon company makes sense.
Yeah, but the analogy doesn't, because nobody in a regular periodical, a regular newspaper is getting indexed.
Right.
Google indexes everything. So when you have a coupon website and someone's looking for a coupon for Nike or whatever, and you're up there beating, entrenched competitors like Groupon who only do that, that hurts that brand that's invested all that time. But when you're buying ad space inside a newspaper, you're not really hurting anyone else except for the people who can't afford it. But that's just kind of how that goes. Yeah. So I thought that analogy was quite poor. But I also feel conflicted because, yeah, news publishing, not that lucrative, and we need it. Mm-hmm. So until we find a way to support it, this is kind of what we have to do. We have to find new ways. We don't have to do this, but we do have to find new ways.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yes, 100%. That's a big problem.
Yeah, there's also been a lot of other stories. Anytime the quality rater guidelines get updated, and I find out about it, you just pretty much know that whatever plans you had, you're going to cancel them.
That's for me an algorithm update. Like, oh no, there's like, oh, I remember it was the last. What was it? The last one, not the January one. What's the January one? I can't remember which one it was. Either that one or the January one. I really was like, I was having a horrible week. I'm like, tomorrow I have like a slow day. It's gonna be great. I can sort of like just get some work done. Like, don't have to push myself too hard. I gotta spend some time with the kids. And then they release an algorithm update, and I'm like, oh my god, I hate you.
Yeah. I think at that point, you just kind of have to delegate. I mean, if you really want your day, you have to delegate, and I hope you're in a position to do that.
Not for that one.
Yeah, sorry.
So it's okay. You know how it goes.
Yeah, sometimes there's just breaking news, and whatever you're doing, it's not as important.
Right.
But you make that choice.
How do you handle that? Because, like, listen, there are times, like, you as a person, I think people in the SEO industry don't do a good job with this. I'm not sure when this episode is going to air. But I spoke to Kelly Stanzi, and either that episode already aired. Yeah, that episode is going to air before this one. So I already spoke to her. We'll link to it in the blog post for this. A whole thing about work life balance in the SEO industry. And I think we do a very poor job sometimes. I do a poor job, right? I actually spend more time with my kids than I do sometimes because I'm on Twitter. I'm checking the news. How do you balance it off? Because at a certain point, it's not worth it.
Yeah, I would say that the team is so great, but also you're never going to outwork Barry Schwartz. So he's going to...
It's not funny.
Yeah.
It's not funny. Dude, like, I'm 7 hours ahead of Barry. Okay? Meaningless. Like, I will email him. Like, he's not going to get back to me for hours because it's literally like 2 o'clock in the morning. Ping.
Yeah. That's exactly it. So
that's crazy.
Having a team that is so talented across so many areas of search really lightens the load because I'm not covering local. I'm not covering tools as much. I will cover those things and I'm happy to. But when you have as much experience in the sector as Greg or as Ginny, especially with advertising, why would you want me to do the coverage? Because, why I care isn't as informed as why they care, and that really is the spectrum right there. But
that's a good point. Like, that's something I really want to touch on because, like, no one's an expert in everything. It's not. I mean, there are like your one or two people, whoever they are. How do you? Because you're covering so much, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I will freely admit, like, there are barriers or there are limits to whatever area I'm in. I know everything about this, but there are certain areas like I have a limit, and that's it. But I don't have to cover the news like you do.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with it when there is like, okay, I've reached my limit of understanding, but I need to know more?
It's easy to just ask questions, but it's hard to kind of get the answers in a format that you're looking for. You're really looking for a teacher. And so I just try to get on phone calls with people who know more, who can walk me through the subject. If it's really advanced and I have to cover it, then I'm just going to have to hunker down and do the research, come up with my questions, and then ask somebody who knows a little bit better. Try to make it as easy for them as possible. But what I find is that almost like 80% of the time, you are just going to be covering something where the amount of time it takes you to research is double the amount of time it takes you to write.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is. But I would rather have that than where I can just bang out things in like 15 or 30 minutes. That'll come with time. But I don't want to get to the point where it's like, I understand this news and it's just straightforward and there's nothing more to it. I feel like I'm not learning at that point. And that is counter to what SEO really is.
Yeah, that's true. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing it. It's just a matter of, okay, I need to learn it. By the way, this is a good point. Former teacher. You're a former teacher, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Oh, we got to talk about this at some point. You need to find the medium that works for you. Like if sitting down reading a million articles is what works for you, then great. If sitting down and reading a million articles is fine, but a phone call is a much easier way for you to learn, then do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's whatever works for you. Sometimes it's webinars. I try to do an array of things, and I got to take breaks. I go out and I walk my dogs, and I come back to it. And that makes
much better.
It makes it take a long time, but when you really care about it, it doesn't feel that long to you. But the problem is you're still on deadline.
Yeah. But like, if you push it too far, like you push yourself too far, it's just going to become strenuous. You might get the article out, but it's not going to be what you really want it to. You won't be happy with it.
Yeah. I've had plenty of times where I've been aggressively edited and I thought I could have spent a third of the time doing this and it would have been just as good as the ultimate finished piece. We cut out so much. So you can't have that tunnel vision.
Yeah. So I'm running out of time.
No worries. I got some time.
You got time? Okay, fine. Okay. So I got to ask you this because we talked a lot about Barry Schwartz and that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that happens to me inevitably is So we look at a lot of research, a lot of SERPs, a lot of this, a lot of that. I'm always looking at new things. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is new. And I send it to Barry. And sometimes it is new. And I get my props in SEO Roundtable. But more often than not, and I've got many cold streaks, I send it to Barry. And all you get back is a one-word answer. Old.
Yeah.
And then a link from an article from 2006.
Yeah.
That's how old it is. Has it happened to you?
Memories, it's encyclopedic.
It's insane.
Yeah.
There's been a time, by the way, I sent him something. He was like, you found this. Here's the article. I'm like, oh, I totally forgot about that.
It doesn't happen to me because I don't bring it up in the context that this is new.
No, but it could be in context of anything.
Yeah. I ask, is this new?
Right.
Which is less crushing when it's not new.
Yeah, I do that now also. Has anybody seen this?
Yeah, right?
Right? Like, I'm just asking.
Yeah, I just happen to have seen this. Right. Is this an experiment? Yeah, that happens. But I'll tell you what, when you're on the email chains for the editors, every once in a while, not every day, but pretty often, you get an email contact from somebody and then Barry's response just saying, not new. And then a link to our coverage or the Search Engine Roundtable coverage. Right. I've asked him about something. He's like, hey, check out this article, and it'll be like 10 years old.
Right,
I'll
exactly.
Think, wow, okay, really not new. Really not new.
Wait, but do you feel bad about yourself, like at least like 5 minutes? Like, oh my God, I can't believe it's like that old.
No, I don't, because I think about where I was 10 years ago, and you have to be forgiving on yourself because there are a lot of voices in the community that are very passionate, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be passionate because your reputation, your client's reputation, everything is on the line here. Yep. However, the way you interact with people, some people are just not forgiving. And I'm a journalist, so I'm not asking for being forgiven, That's why I have to be kind of nice on myself.
I want to ask you about that, actually, because there's a lot of people reading your stuff, which is great. But what will inevitably happen, and this happened to me, I did a research study about something, and some other publication, not Search Engine Land, did a piece showing why what I said was like stupid and wrong. Which and no one even bothered to email me what did you mean by this? I think you might be wrong with this. But the coverage was totally inaccurate. It wasn't what I was saying at all. I'm like, you know what? I just realized as awesome as the SEO industry is, there are certain voices that are just we'll call them negative.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you see this way more often than I do. Does it bother you?
Fundamentally, yeah, it bothers me a lot because it's so different than when you come up to a conference and everybody just seems pretty jazzed, or they're walking out of the rooms like, wow, I didn't know that. They're really walking away better at their jobs. And that is so different than a lot of the toxicity that happens on social media whenever you get, IO is going to be coming up soon and they're going to be making announcements, and get ready for the memes. Yep. Mordy. I don't really like that, but that's part of the internet itself, and we as SEOs, we're all about the internet, and I guess we kind of embrace that because memes and things like that, it's easy to latch onto and it's easy to connect with people over. Mm-hmm. It's not so easy to have that hit of instant gratification or satisfaction when you say something supportive or when you successfully articulate a counterpoint. And that's why I really appreciate it when people do. I try not to interact with people who just go on tirades about how terrible the new Schema is. Right. Yeah. Because that's not useful. And also, you don't want to create a space that's not welcoming to beginners. I was talking to an attendee, and they didn't ask a question. And it was a very beginner level question, but the resilience towards asking a question, how did we get here?
I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I walked into the SEO industry a very limited background in SEO. And the way I got to where I am now is by asking a million freaking questions. And it wasn't that I felt safe on social media to ask. I did not. I found some people to ask, internally at Rank Ranger. I don't like that at all. It's okay to be, first off, you don't agree with me. Let's say I say something you don't agree with. You think it's stupid. Okay, it's we can have disagreement about it. But it doesn't have to be a certain, it doesn't have to be personal.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, I am more righteous than thou. Look at all my knowledge of SEO. It just shouldn't be that way. And it's kind of, humiliating, actually,
Yeah.
because then you talk to people about your career and you share with them and you want to bring up the positives, and there are plenty of positives, so many wins, but then there's also that time when the people around you, your family members, are like, hey, why are you so stressed out? And you're like, oh, because Google did this thing. And then you can see the reflection inside yourself of wanting to be bitter about something.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of have to be better than that, because guess what? These companies, they're making the changes regardless of how you feel.
Right. I mean, listen, you can complain and be, but I like to be, I'm a big complainer. It's just part of my nature. I'm a cynic, I'm a complainer, whatever it is. But like, just be humorous about it. You don't have to be like a jerk about it. And when you critique Google, and I will say this, you need, and I'm trying to be very careful about this, you need to pull out the people from the company.
Absolutely.
Okay? John Mueller or Danny Sullivan are amazing people who do an amazing service to the industry. If you don't like something that Google did, it negatively impacts you, and you want to go on social media and be like, this sucks, I really hate this, fine, but like, you need to like know your limits and don't go after the people per se.
Yeah, because part of their job, unfortunately, is being, the whipping boy or whatever for all these press releases.
And their hands are tied. Like, what are they going to do? They can't change. They may hate it themselves. You never know.
Yeah. Do you think that they're holding back on you? No. If they could tell you legally,
yeah, they would.
They would. But if you were in their position, I doubt that anybody could do really a better job than we see, John do, or Danny. Everybody has just been, I feel like, and when I interact with them in person, they're very, very pleasant.
Yeah. I've only had good interactions with them, and I'm a pain in the ass. So, okay. So I have a little thing that I do. I call it optimize or disavow, and we have to do this. So
let's do it.
For those of you who are new to listening to the show, it's either I'm going to give you two options, and they're really good options. Both of them are really good options, and you're stuck choosing one good option over another good option, which is uncomfortable. Or I give you two bad options, and you're stuck choosing one crappy option over another crappy option, and that's really uncomfortable. So this is a George Nguyen version of optimize it or disavow it. So again, it's zero sum. I mean, you could say it depends, but I'll give you my typical answer. It's not a nursing home. There are no depends here.
Okay.
Yeah. So just one. Would you report about a major overhaul to the Bing SERP or some stupid, non-important, meaningless, small change to the Google SERP?
I would report on the former. I mean, given that I wasn't assigned this and I actually had discretion over
you have discretion, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah, then I would definitely go over the more meaningful thing, because it's we just talked about BERT in one of the sessions I attended, and
Don Anderson.
Yeah. Bing has been doing BERT for months, like almost a full 6 months, right?
Bing's AI is very advanced.
They're very advanced, right? And much more than people give them credit for, and they've done a lot in the AI space just to push the whole thing forward, not necessarily for the benefit of Microsoft, but I'm sure there's a business case for it. But when you think about that, had they really put their PR muscle into promoting that they had BERT first, this whole thing would be viewed differently.
Yeah, I agree with, by the way. And there are some things that I like about Bing that Google does not. For example, Bing's feature snippet that they have is a multiple perspective feature snippet. I like that.
They've been doing that for years, right?
Years. And I'm surprised Google hasn't stolen that yet.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not surprised. I think Google's not doing that because they like having the one true answer because it's more authoritative.
Yeah, and it removes, when you think about how people are viewing the SERP, people on mobile, they want skimmability. When you have multiple perspectives, that's harder to achieve.
That's true.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're reporting on Bing.
Yeah, I would definitely choose to report on the whatever search engine that's doing something very different and meaningful in the space than a minor tweak on the Google SERP.
Even though it's Bing.
Yeah, for sure.
Even Yahoo.
Is Yahoo around?
I don't know.
yeah. If they were doing something like interesting, I would definitely do that, because I mean, it's getting people to think differently about the entrenched powers. I mean, why would you continue to be so fixated on a small SERP feature that, if it's really a nothing feature,
nothing burger,
then it's not going to impact anybody, right? Your clients aren't going to be asking about it. Now, as we move up to the degree of things start actually changing, your visibility changes, or like deduplication is a huge deal, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I would definitely do that, but I would probably get to the other thing later, just because there are all these search engines and they don't all have the same business model. And all of that should be represented, or you should have a choice. I mean, it doesn't feel like that when you actually are trying not to use Google Maps. And then you're like, oh, well, my Gmail's here and it has already added things to my Google Calendar. It doesn't feel like you have a choice, but you do. And that begins with the information that you're given. And I would want to give people that information so they know that, hey, I value different views on information. I value two sides of the argument. Bing is better for that right now.
You took that to a philosophical place that I did not expect, and that's why I love you. That was amazing.
I think about these things a lot. I don't always get somewhere with it, but I think somewhere in the middle of that answer, I found somewhere to latch onto.
No, but like just the fact that like that's where you want to take it. That's how you're thinking about it is really refreshing, and that's why we need more George.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Mordy.
thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, it was a pleasure.
Awesome. And we are back to our regularly scheduled In Search SEO podcast. Big things, only big things in George's future. The guy's awesome. You should be reading his columns. You're reading his articles on Search Engine Land all the time. I'm sure you are already. Okay, speaking of Search Engine Land and the news, Sapir, you know what time it is. Could you please hit it with the news?
Google is going all in on giving advice these days. The search engine has offered advice to both health sites and small businesses. In specific, Google has told health sites to make sure their content is not too technical, while telling small businesses to ensure they keep their consumers updated.
Which is really interesting to see Google offering this level of specificity in their advice, which they generally don't do. It just shows you the times they are changing, to quote Bob Dylan, who, again, you don't know who I'm talking about. Sapir,
I know.
I'm talking to you.
Know
You only know Bob Dylan because I've told you about Bob Dylan. That doesn't count,
no,
Sapir.
I knew him by name. I never heard his music. Anyway.
That doesn't count. Keep going. Sorry.
Anyways, Google has updated its ad policy to prevent people from selling crucial health supplies at crazy prices. It also limits selling crucial supplies during a time such as now that are on short supply.
Yeah, so like face masks, we know before you're not let Google stop selling them. It seems like any of these sort of products that like gloves, whatever it is, which you have to be a special kind of person to capitalize on this horrible virus and price gouge. So good for you, Google, going after these special people.
Yep, you're here.
Here. Okay.
Though not yet visible in the search results, Google has added a new COVID-19 schema to its help page. The new format will allow schools, medical facilities, and the like to show urgent content related to Corona on the SERP.
Right, so this makes a ton of sense. Good on Google, again, really on top of things. So, health clinics have urgent message, maybe like, I don't know, I'm just making this up as I'm going along, like, don't come into the clinic, call first.
Right.
So you can do that now. I mean, soon.
Yep.
I don't know when you're listening to this, so maybe it's already out.
Yep. Google Posts are back. Google announced that they should now be available for all to see on the SERP.
Awesome. Welcome back, Google Posts. Too bad that my favorite Google post, which related to baseball, like if you Google the Yankees, there's great GIFs and videos and whatever, is inapplicable because baseball has been canceled by the stupid virus.
No one cares, Morty.
Everyone cares.
Okay.
Everyone cares. You're wrong.
Moving on. Google is catering to the new reality by showing more takeout and delivery information on the SERP. As the old man who I host this podcast with spotted,
Thank you.
the first two
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. The first two cards in the Discover More Places carousel for eateries are now always for delivery and takeout. Also, within the local panel, Google is listing attributes related to delivery and takeout.
So much takeout, so much delivery. I'm actually surprised you didn't mention I'm old and balding, so thank you for leaving that part out.
I was about to mention it, but I thought it would be too harsh.
Thank you. And with an expanding waistline, especially because I'm sitting inside is eating. I'm so stressed out. I need to eat. I had to take a break from eating to do this podcast.
Right, okay. Lastly, Search Console is now giving you more options as to the emails you receive from them.
More options are always great. More emails, maybe not so great. So now you can filter out which ones you get. So perfect. Good on you, Google. Yeah. Thank you, Sapir, for that lovely rendition of the news. It's so great to hear that so much news is related to stupid virus. I hope that continues to not be the case, or hope it is
Right.
not the case going forward, and we get past this stupid virus, so that I don't have to deal with my kids interrupting the podcast like is happening now, even though you can't hear it. We got to move on because I got to go take care of a child problem. I'm not joking. I'm seriously not joking. Sapir knows I had to put the podcast on pause for a minute.
Yeah.
It's a problem. Anyway, okay. So with that, we got to rush off because I got to handle a problem. Let's get into the fun SEO send-off question. You should say something now, I think. Like, what's going on? Oh, no more joke. No, I don't know. Figure this out because I got to go handle this.
Okay. What? Okay. So, this week we're asking, if Google were to believe in a superstition, which one would it be?
You want to go first?
My answer, let me just, get straight to it, is the most common one, knocking on wood.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because even I do that.
You knock on wood? Oh, I thought you were going to say knock on wood and then say something. You knock on wood. That's good. Whatever. Hope you don't fall off a ladder and break some mirror or eat a black cat or something.
Give a reason.
Well, a superstition. How about none? Because superstitions are stupid. You really knock on wood?
Yeah,
Seriously? Wow.
I do.
Okay. Google is a database, scientific thinking thing that doesn't care about cats or mirrors or ladders or whatever. All they care about are lawsuits from the EU. End of story.
Hey, not everything can be explained by science.
Science!
So,
by the way, I have to say that. When anyone mentions science, I'm obligated. And I'm killing myself because I have a real problem to take care of. You have to yell out science from She Blinded Me with Science. Which, again, great song. You don't know that song?
No.
It's a great, and She Blinded Me with Science. And the guy yells out science!
Okay.
So it's an obligation in my household to yell out science. Anyone every time I mention science. And my kids know science. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
We're going to end with that because I have a major problem to take care of with my kids who I'm ignoring while we're doing this podcast.
Okay.
Wish me luck.
Good luck.
This is so screwed up. Anyway, I hope you're doing great. I hope you're feeling well. I hope you continue to feel well out there. And hopefully this virus will pass us relatively soon. Again, we're not here next week on the 14th, so I'll see you again in April. I'll talk to you again on April 21st. Tune in then for an all-new episode of the In Search SEO podcast. Thank you for listening, and don't forget, it's been in search because we're all in search of something stupid cool.